We all remember Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, the grand magnum opus of mascot horror, a game of the decade that managed to combine good gameplay, fun, horror, and lore, all wrapped into one burrito, and boy oh boy was it a tasty burrito at that. You weren't getting cheated out of this one like Chipotle. From 5D TVs, crucified toys, and exploding cats, Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 had it all. The game made so many people fall in love with the Poppy franchise, and it redefined what mascot horror could be. And man, did this hype people. So, when Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 was announced, everyone was ecstatic. The games have only gotten better since the original first release. We went from tech demo to good game to the messiah of mascot horror. So, as usual, the next game was going to shatter the universe with its awesomeness. We then got trailer after trailer after trailer hyping up this game. But there was one problem with all of them. They were all just cinematics. Sure, they were awesome, no doubt, but where was the gameplay? This was a little suspicious, no doubt, but maybe they were just saving the best for last. Then, 5 days before the game dropped, they released the gameplay trailer, and it was pretty good. Aside from some quality issues and the fact that this 2-minute trailer only showed a little over 40 seconds of game footage, I'm sure it's fine though, they'll fix that stuff up. 5 days later, the game released.
My man, Ratatouille, you can go home now. I fell out of the map! Look at it! What the?
Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 is truly something. From the devs saying it was the darkest chapter yet,
liar, pants on fire!
to its mountain of massive bugs, Chapter 4 seems to completely divert expectations, just like Chapter 3, except this time, not in the good way. The game sadly doesn't get as many things right as its predecessor, and fails at what Chapter 3 crafted almost perfectly. Don't get me wrong, they improved on some points, and that is especially true with the lore, which, oh man, did they give us a lot. They seem to have put a lot of care and effort into their story, but not so much in the rest of the game. Am I saying they didn't work hard and were lazy? Absolutely not. I know the team at Mob Games were locked in for this chapter, but they seem to have locked in the wrong aspects. Yes, story is important, but not when it comes at the cost of everything else. It's like if you whipped up the best cake ever, you put a bunch of effort into making it taste absolutely amazing, but then you accidentally frosted it with 2-year past the expiration date frosting.
It's not even pink, it's raw! And Coop has delivered undercooked salmon.
How the heck are you going to get people to enjoy this tasty cake if they can't help but notice the awful tasting of the frosting? That's the problem. This game feels like story first, everything second. I'm Ride or Die, the below average gamer, here to take you on a journey through Poppy Playtime, explaining why this game is a big disappointment due to its over-focus on story instead of gameplay. I'll be going over the aspects in which their over-focus of story affected, including the main gameplay, characters, and fun. Now, let me make this very clear. This is not to hate on Chapter 4. Love Poppy Playtime as a whole, and this is just to point out the flaws in the game and what they will hopefully do to make it right. So, mascot horror enthusiasts, sit back, relax, and hit the subscribe button if you want Pianosaurus to come back for Chapter 5, and let's get into the video.
The feet bone's connected to the leg bone.
Gameplay seemed to take the hardest hit from this super-centered story-focused approach they were leaning into for Chapter 4. And, as a result, I honestly think this is the most lackluster gameplay since Chapter 1. They took what made Poppy Playtime's gameplay unique and set the whole thing on fire. The gameplay, I will admit, does improve in aspects and is definitely not as boring as Chapter 1, but it comes at the cost of so much. Speaking of puzzles though, they are just about the biggest aspect of Poppy Playtime, besides Huggy Wuggy. Using them slappy hands and them power towers are always so much fun. Granted, they can get a bit repetitive if that is your only main gameplay feature like in Chapter 3, but around this time, they just completely axed everything introduced in Chapter 3 and the previous chapters. The hand turrets? Never heard of them. New power towers? What's that? Heck, let's just get rid of the power towers entirely and just do gears and button pressing. Don't get me wrong, I like new gameplay elements, and I'm glad they're spicing things up and not just having the power towers, but not when it comes at the cost of losing everything else. It's like if you just built a new PC and your friend tells you you could make it better by adding a 16GB RAM processor and a new graphics card. So, you go buy that RAM processor and that graphics card, but then proceed to run over your PC with your car. What was the point of even adding that new stuff in? These new puzzles have no semblance at all of what Poppy Playtime has done in the past. They all feel generic. The only puzzle that really had my noodle thinking was this gas puzzle in the surgery office. You basically have to go through different cells outside to get numbers for a code. But you must wear a gas mask because of all the red smoke outside. But it only has 60 seconds of oxygen, so you have to keep going back inside to refill the time of your oxygen. Once you have all the numbers, you have to order them correctly. It's based on what body part they're missing, and I kept singing the wrong song to help me.
The feet bones connected to...
It was hands, shoulders, knees, and toes.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
This was probably the only puzzle I really enjoyed, and had the sense of accomplishment once I completed it. Boom. So there are bits and pieces of improvement. There's so much potential for newer puzzles, but we never really see it used. All the other puzzles just feel like the same generic repeating ones we've seen in mascot horror games before. Not to mention that the puzzles are barely even in the game. Something else mob games failed to improve or even add were chase scenes. There were only 2. Both involve our boy Yarnaby, but they literally are just Garten of Banban leveled scenes, where you run forward and don't look back. Granted, this wouldn't be at all bad if they didn't really serve a big purpose, but they happen to be the only 2 chase scenes in the whole game, and the second one just ends with Yarnaby getting flamed. There's no tension, build-up, or cool chase. The Miss Delight chase sucked, yeah, but it was the end of this really crazy Weeping Angel section.
Oh, they got her!
Mob games are known for their outstanding chase sequences, and this feels nothing like their normal quality. There are also 2 boss fights in this game, which you would think would be great, because if they didn't focus on the chase scenes, they had to focus on the boss fights, but you'd be wrong. The fight with the doctor is just him putting us in a basement with his minions as we try to figure out our way through the maze of servers to get batteries to power the exit, and them minions are also trying to kill us. While being a very cool horror and scary concept, it has some bad execution. The minions are slow and they take over 3 hits to kill you, which just kills any tension whatsoever in this area. The only reason I was ever scared going to this area was because I thought they were going to be weeping angels.
Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, it isn't a weeping angel? Oh, well, why didn't you say so?
I was able to complete this section in less than 3 minutes. The Doughy the Doaster's boss fight at the end is supposed to be the cream of the crop gameplay ending, and it's alright. They tried to break the laws of mascot horror by having a chase scene and a boss fight smashed into one, which again sounds like an amazing concept. They just executed this pretty badly, as this just turns to be a complete mess.
Some of you gotta be kidding me! I got boxes full of Pepe! Alright.
Like trying to serve an appetizer and a main dish all at once, but it ends up just ruining dinner as a whole.
How's our signature dish? Blanders.
Doughy fusion dances into his final form as we get into a quick chase scene, which is definitely the best of the chapter. The boss fight is literally us just running around in caves, shooting liquid nitrogen, hoping Doughy to freeze, and then gutting him with the freaking buzzsaw to kill him. We have to repeat this 3 times till we can finally escape him. And I will give Mob credit that they do give him a cool ending.
Doughy?
Which I can't really say for anybody else. They do set up the mechanics for the boss fight earlier in the chapter, so it doesn't feel like something completely new, which is nice. But I found myself struggling to understand that we had to freeze him under the saw. So for like 30 minutes, I'm running like a headless chicken shooting cans, hoping to trigger a cutscene.
Man, I'm gonna break my monitor, I swear!
This is probably just my skill issue, but still. The boss fights and chase scenes were a big letdown, and so was the gameplay as a whole. There are barely any puzzles and chases, and boss fights are pretty lackluster, leaving you with a sour taste in your mouth. Gameplay is the most important aspect in a game to keep your player engaged, but they trade all of that for story elements and cutscenes, which just hurt the fun and replayability of the game as a whole. Speaking of lackluster elements,
Mauricio, I can't move it anymore.
Now, I know I said the story was the forefront of Chapter 4, but that doesn't mean they did all the characters justice. While they do add backstory for existing characters, and some new ones, it seems the captain of this lore ship was Doughy all along. He was the one at the helm, steering the ship, leading all the new characters overboard to make room for him and his Doughy dough. They had so many great ideas and designs for new characters, but because they really wanted Doughy, everybody else had to be cast aside to make room. He is basically in all the cutscenes and hogs all of the new character screen time. So, how did these new characters fare with being pushed out of the spotlight? Why the did you kill him off so quickly? He had less screen time than in his dang trailer. They showed him off in the marketing the chapter 4 art in the freaking Steam page too. And then you just kill him. Just like that. All for what? An introduction to Dowie?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This is actually the most pointless and worth deaths in mascot horror. How did they not see the love for this man? They posted a trailer for him. These guys, they have some cool designs, my favorite being Ratatouille over here. And I mean, do I even call these guys character? They're literally just the jumping bean versions of the smiling critters in chapter 3. And the bigger body versions are literally just scaled up mini versions of them. Like, what the fart? So much wasted potential. Yarnaby, another character who, once again, also has an amazing design with the creepy mouth and it opening sideways instead of normal ways. He looked to be an amazing character in this chapter and the main mascot we'd be fighting against besides the doctor. Well, I was wrong. He gets 2 chases and 1 section, and that section is actual hell. It is so buggy, he spawn caps even after patches, and is just straight up blind. This section is such a waste for him, and he, especially being the one guy that actually gets the most attention besides Dowie, it just goes to show how poorly they handle these new characters. This man is the literal embodiment of evil. The Dr. Doofenshmirtz of Poppy Playtime, if you will. We aren't dealing with a confused experiment anymore. This man that has created them. He is clever, cunning, and downright villainous.
Here's Johnny!
When I saw this guy, he looked so freaking cool. I mean, 1 eye, TV head, endoskeleton body. What more could you ask for? And he sees everywhere. That is such a cool mechanic. Well, for one thing, I'd ask for more screen time with him. He appears in the beginning of the chapter for like a decent amount, and then he isn't heard from until like 2 hours later when you go to confront him, and then he just dies. No climactic payoff. He dies while have barely done anything. He was hyped up so much. He had his own trailer, and then nothing is done with him. I'm gonna tweak out because of how many characters are introduced but forgotten about so easily. Dowie. Oh, Dowie. The only character that actually gets a good amount of screen time. He's even the final face of the chapter. I mean, sure, his design is pretty cool in the fact he can shape himself into whatever he wants, but how can I really enjoy him when they ruined every other new character? Most of them just get shafted to make more screen time for Dowie. It's like if your favorite TV show came up with another season and they just nuked all the old characters to make room for this other guy you've never heard of. Sure, they probably will make this new guy look hot as heck and make him have an amazing backstory, but how can you really appreciate it when you know this came at the cost of everybody else? Overall, I think the designs for these characters are amazing, but because of their focus on Dory for the story, it just leaves them with nothing left to do with the other characters. So they're all just killed off in underwhelming ways or just forgotten about entirely. Not very fun if you ask me. Speaking of fun,
Whoa, slow down, Maurice.
this game doesn't really have any fun moments. The only fun things are finding out how many bugs are in this game. Like, why did they even release this game in this state?
I fell out of the map!
Dare I say it competes with Security Breach for the most buggy game on release. I'd gladly would have accepted a delay if it didn't mean getting soft locked everywhere I go. I mean, I found so many game-breaking bugs in my playthrough of Chapter 4. From falling out of the map to watching characters phase through objects, this has to be the buggiest game in the Poppy Playtime franchise. There's a section where the doctor sends you down to this area and you have to avoid Sir Lamb Chops, but the problem I encountered was that Baba Chop's cell door never opened in the beginning, so there was no threat the entire time. I was able to just freely do the puzzle without worrying about him. Overall, there's not much replayability, as this game really is just walking simulator with movie. Why bother play it again when you already know the story?
We've been trying to contact you regarding your car's extended warranty for...
There is basically no horror, and that's coming from a guy who gets scared at literally everything. Due to the fact they wanted to convey so much plot in this game, that really does not leave any room for horror moments. The best horror moments happen when you're alone. The fear of the unknown is what gets you, but you never feel that when Dowie is over here yapping the whole time or Poppy is yelling at us.
Yeah, I did what you told me, you bozo.
They have some pretty horrific imagery at the beginning, but then they don't do anything with that. It's more or less there for shock factor. Like, imagine in Chapter 3 if Dog Day being crucified was the scariest part of the game, but he was really just there to look at. There is so much story involved and dialogue dialogue and Doughy always saying, "Hiya, pal," that you never are scared because you know there's always somebody there exposition dumping right next to you. It's like trying to tell scary stories, but you leave the lights on and play Gundam Star in the background. Don't get me wrong, I like the story, and how Poppy wants to blow this factory sky high and we walk out of here like in an action movie, but it's all dialogue. There's no room for scares. And there are practically no jump scares because of this new system they have for hitting you. I hope for Chapter 5 they add more fear factors into this game, because really, it just feels like they're giving us Walking Simulator with a side of bugs and some lore in a 12-liter bottle for us to jug. Overall, Chapter 4 was a pretty big disappointment in the eyes of me. I know not every chapter has to be better than the last, but this one didn't even feel good as Chapter 3. Heck, I could say this is Chapter 2 levels. I mean, I think I had more fun with the puzzles in Chapter 2 than this chapter. Now, I'm not trying to hate on Mob, because I really want to see them succeed and make the best game possible, but they need to give every aspect of their game equal attention. That's what Chapter 3 did almost perfectly, but here, it's very evident that Lore and Doughy the Doasters were at the helm of this chapter rather than anything else that makes a good mascot horror game. I like that they're taking risks with prioritizing the story, but it's a very hard thing to do, and they have to figure out how to balance that, because they completely tipped the scales for story in this one. Finding Frankie didn't have that much story, but it had the most amazing gameplay ever, and that's why people love it so much. I hope they spend more time on Chapter 5 and make it the best possible. I'm really looking forward to what they're cooking. That's all from me, and ciao ciao for now.